Hello and welcome to the Good Boy Podcast, the podcast where we talk about good boys and good girls, dogs that we grew up with or have now, and how they have positively affected our lives. I'm your host, Ilya Alexev, joined with my guest host. Today I'm with my brother Dimitri, and I call him Dima, so if you hear me call him Dima, that's his nickname. So how's it going, Dima?
I'm just wondering, I'm just your brother?
Yeah, you're just my brother, you know. So I wanted to have you on as the first guest because we live together and he's technically your dog, but he's our good dog we've grown up with. I guess just a little history about our quick dog history is we had a dog named Chewy who was a few years older than us. She lived till she was like 15.
She was even older than Ian, who's our older brother.
And then we had Sparky, what was he, like 5?
He was 7 when we got him.
He was 7, and we got him in 99 or 2000. And then he died in 2009, and then that leads us to Mikey. So basically we had dogs our whole lives. I think there was... I remember it as one day.
No, it's like 3 days.
3 days, but basically we had put Sparky down a couple days around Christmas time, and then the day after Christmas, we went to the Humane Society to pick up Mikey. So, do you want to just describe Mikey a little bit, just like physically what he looks like?
Well, he's like a 90-pound, huge like black lab, and like he is so like thick and muscular, and like he just loves tennis balls, and he's like right now he's just chewing on a tennis ball in the room.
Yeah, so Mikey we got when he was 9 months old. We got him from the Humane Society. He's, as far as we know, he's a purebred.
Yeah, he looks like a purebred
black lab. Big guy. He's very fit. So before we try to, trip over our own feet, do you want to just talk about why you wanted Mikey, like, and not necessarily him in particular, but wanted like a dog, and just kind of like getting him?
Well, it had me doing like, it had to do with me like becoming an adult. Like I was 17 when I got Mikey, and I wanted to become like an adult. So I felt like, this is a first big responsibility. So I wanted a dog before Sparky passed away. So I went to the Humane Society probably in November or whatever, a month before I got Mikey. And I was just looking at dogs. And actually, Mikey wasn't my first choice. It was another black lab who's a girl. And the only reason why I picked that girl over Mikey was just because it reminded me of our first dog, Chewy, who was like at the time, my favorite dog, and probably still is my favorite dog. I don't know, Mikey. I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah. So you had gone with our mom to look at dogs, and you didn't pick one out. And I think it was just kind of like we'll go later with the family and look.
No, the thing is, I also didn't have the money at the time for the adoption fees and.
Yeah. So basically, we had put Sparky down, and when we had Chewy, and then we had gotten Sparky, so they overlapped for a number of years, and then Sparky got old, we put him down, and so we didn't have a dog for a few days, and for me that was kind of weird, because we had grown up in a house with pets. At one point we had 2 dogs, a cat, 4 guinea pigs, 5
guinea pigs,
and like a bunch of fish. Now obviously varying degrees of like interest, but it was just something that had always been a part of our lives. Taking care of them, spending time with them. So we got Mike. Let's see. So the whole family went to the Humane Society, and the Humane Society we went to, it's been renovated since then. But basically, from what I remember, it was like kind of like that small cyclone like wire fence in between the kennels.
Yeah.
And we were looking at the dogs, and I had never looked for dogs at the Humane Society before. Chewy was older than me. My parents got Chewy, and Sparky we had gotten from my grandparents. So this is my first time doing it, so I didn't really know what to look for. I didn't know what kind of dogs I liked. I never had any choice in that, and we wanted input from everyone, and, we all get along, so, like, I imagine we would have gotten whatever dog one of us would like, we probably all would have liked that dog. So what I remember specifically about Mike was, from all the humane societies I've seen, there's always a lot of small dogs, and those dogs tend to be yappy. And so they were barking, and I just remember him jumping up. So there was like a small, like a
concrete.
short, it was concrete? I thought it was wooden.
No,
but like a wall, and I remember him just going with his front paws on there and going like, woo, woo, woo. Like kind of like a, I don't know, warning, kind of like cut that out kind of bark. So like that stuck out to me. And so we went to like a, what do they call it, visiting room?
Yeah, something like that, holding room. I don't know.
Basically we went into a room to meet the dog, and so it's this small room.
A bunch of toys.
It's the 5 of us, our family, the person working there, and Mikey. So they bring Mikey in, and he's 9 months old, crazy high energy, and we were throwing a ball around, right?
Yeah.
And, like I mentioned, Chewy was older than us, so she didn't really play that much.
Well, also, like, she took, like, a motherly, like,
and
role.
Sparky didn't play with us, so, like, I remember thinking, like, man, I always wanted a dog who I could just throw the ball to. And, so we met Mike, we liked him, and, like, sure, we adopted him, so...
Well, I mean, hold on, I mean...
Like, oh, yeah, well, go ahead, I mean...
there was, like, a little cupboard with, like, a bunch of treats and...
Oh, yeah. So they had, like, a cupboard, a cabinet, and it was probably, like, person eye level, and Mikey is a smart guy. We'll talk about that more later, and so... He was, like, jumping up on the wall, like he knew those were the treats were, so obviously he had, visited some people. And just, like, kind of, I don't know how it is across the whole country, but in the Bay Area, a lot of the humane societies, like I mentioned, have, like, chihuahuas and those kind of small dogs. So a dog like Mike, being, like, a nice, big, young black lab, those guys get adopted pretty quickly. So... we were lucky to get him. So, is there anything else you want to say before we got him?
Nothing before we got him.
Okay, so we go in our van, we have him in the car, we drive home, and then we open up the side gate, and we let him come in, and he basically just ran in the backyard. And we have a big backyard, and so I think instantly he was like, whoa, I get all this playroom?
Yeah, he was really excited. Like he'd run, he was just running around in circles, which he does. I think other dogs do that too.
So I remember this when we first got him. I don't remember if this was the first day, but did we have like those like 20 tennis balls out, or was that later?
That was later.
Okay,
but we had this little fence. We have, like, our yard is like split in half by a walkway, and on like the left side it's just grass, and then like on the right side there was like this like little fence with a little garden.
Yeah. So there's like a little garden, and it is a kind of like plastic fence, kind of just to keep people out from going there. And so for the longest time, it's a barrier. It was probably like about what, like Mike was taller than it, so. It was not that tall.
It was probably up to his legs.
But he didn't know he could jump over it. And so we'll go into more over the course of this discussion and talk about how Mikey is smart. But when we first got him, we would have one of our friends over, and we would play, just monkey in the middle with the football. And then, sometimes there's a bad throw, you don't catch it. And so the ball would hit off someone's hands and get knocked into this fenced off area, fence in quotes. And, Mike would run up, and then he, do like a grinding, almost, it felt like a cartoon halt that he couldn't get there. And then, one of us would just walk over and get the ball. And then eventually, he just ran and jumped over it. And he figured out he could do that. And, we got him when he was 9 months old. So he's extremely energetic. And one thing he used to always do was, you mentioned earlier, he would just run around. And he would run around and jump over the fence, and then run through the fenced area and jump over. And to me, it always reminded me of like a horse, like in the combination of like a horse track and doing like I forget what it's called, but the trick portion things that the horses do, where they jump over the poles, and so that's just kind of like the foundation of Mikey as a dog and his personality. So is there anything else you want to...
Oh, yeah. So after he's started running around in circles, he went to a sliding door that has huge glass, and he saw his reflection and just growling at it, just like dogs do sometimes. And I remember at the end of the night, I slept downstairs, and he slept downstairs with me, and we just slept together, and it was really cool.
Yeah, and Mikey became instantly protective of us. I don't know if people train dogs to be protective. We didn't do anything like that. He would just instantly, just on his own, growl with the doorbell or knock, or we have our living room and he'd look through the window, look through the blinds, and just peer at people and bark at them. So right away he felt very comfortable in our house. Was it the first night when he growled at me?
I think that's the second night.
Okay, so
because we were it's the second night because we slept upstairs.
So we were in high school, so it's a Christmas time, so we're on winter break, and so I guess first week we have him, and I'm getting ready to go to bed, and he had jumped on my bed and was on top of my bed and basically in front of where my pillow would be.
Yeah, so Mikey always if there's a pillow, he'll use it.
So there was no way I could use the bed, and he's our dog, but he doesn't know me, and so I'm trying to get it off, and he growled at me, and I was kind of scared. He's a young dog.
He's 80 pounds, something like that. He was almost fully grown at 9 months.
And then
he popped the tennis ball.
Oh yeah, yeah. So as we're recording this, Mikey is on the ground chewing a tennis ball. So his energy is crazy. He instantly. So we played tennis. We played sports. So we had tons of balls, just in our shed in our backyard, and so. We were a great fit for him in that need because he just loves to chew on the tennis ball. He just chews on it.
Any ball, basketball, he'll put his paws over it and try to bite it. In his mouth is too small. Football, he'll chew on a football. Those are the soccer ball. The same thing as the basketball. Those are the main sports. I mean, he doesn't chew on a hockey puck, but. We don't really have hockey pucks.
So he does this interesting thing, I guess, where and as the show goes on with this episode and future episodes, we're just fans of dogs. We just know dogs. We haven't studied dogs. We don't have this background. So if we seem kind of ignorant, we are just fans of dogs and appreciators, and
we're casuals.
We're casuals. So. Excuse me if we are uninformed. But anyway, he has a couple different things. A lot of the times he skins the ball. He just rips off the skin, and then he'll chew on it and then break it. Sometimes he rips it up before breaking it.
I did forget a ball. We used to have baseballs.
Yeah. So he loves baseballs too. He would somehow slowly
he'd undo the stitching.
The stitching,
and then he would undo the skin, and then it'd just be this ball of yarn, and then he'd undo the ball of yarn, and then there's a little little ball in the middle, and he would just chew on that ball, like a little tiny ball.
And so, and just seeing pictures of other dogs, he's a pretty big dog, so he chews on a ball, but most of the times he has possession of two. He can hold two in his mouth. Now, I know there's dogs who can do more, but that was the first time I had actually seen that. And so he has he developed these kind of like weird habits. So as a high energy dog, we would throw him the ball in the backyard all the time. So
yeah, we'd have to like walk him twice a day, play with him. It was crazy how much.
Yeah, so what it basically got to is we would be our TV room is on the way to is the room with the sliding door to the outside. So we would be watching TV or playing video games in the summer, have the door open, and just constantly throw him the ball outside. He'd chase it and come back. Now, the kind of weird thing is he has these kind of weird rules that he created, and we don't know how. So if he is actively in possession of two balls, he usually doesn't go after the first ball.
Mm-hmm.
You'll throw it, he'll wait for it, and then he'll go up for the second one. So even if you throw it right at him, he'll usually just ignore it, let it hit him. Then the second one he'll chase. So we're not sure how he developed this, but that's just one of his kind of weird rules that he just created. And we tried really hard for a long time to say, no, get that one. But he doesn't really do that. But he loves chasing. He loves catching. He really likes when you'd be on the ground and you'd kick it and you'd trap it with his front paws. Is there any other? Okay, so the next, I guess, quintessential aspect of Mikey was one of his first toys, which was called Little Buddy. So Little Buddy was, what was it, probably a foot tall?
Something like that.
So it's a fairly big plush toy that looked kind of like a white kind of cartoon smiley character. Yeah, so it's like a white plush, and it has not arms.
It's just like a star shape. It was just a star.
Yeah,
that
but
they threw eyes on.
Yeah, so and as a star shape, the top being the head, and then it'd have arms, hands, whatever, feet and legs. The hands and the feet had a squeaker in them, and the chest had one as well. And do you remember when we got that?
It was probably a week or 2 weeks after we got Mikey. We were trying to just buy a bunch of toys for him because we were worried about him just going through tennis balls because he kept destroying them. So we were maybe a toy would help or whatever.
Yeah, and so we really hadn't had a ton of experience with
dogs that like toys.
So we, every dog's different, so we had no idea. So we got him this Little Buddy, and he was obsessed with this thing. So the first kind of thing is he destroyed the chest squeaker, and then eventually the other squeakers got crushed.
He'd pop them.
Yeah, it's just like a little, if you've ever seen a squeaky toy, it's just like a little plastic thing with a hole and a little filter or something. And it was stuffed. And so he loved this thing. And one thing that Demon would kind of do is he would taunt him with it, where he would hold it, and even if Mike wasn't actively interested in it at that moment, he would take it and kind of
put it right in his face.
Put it right in his face, or gently kind of hit him in the face or the neck, and then he would get interested in it, and then he would just shred this thing apart. And so what kept happening is he loved it so much, he would rip it up and he would pull the foam out. He would just tear a hole.
Foam, just more of the cotton.
Yeah, the
filling.
The filling, yeah. And he didn't shred it. He would just rip it and then pull all the filling out, and then we'd take it away from him, and then we'd puff it back up, have my mom sew it. And how long did we have Little Buddy for?
I don't know, probably about a year. But I mean, like, but we'd like have it just like we'd just hide it because he would just constantly rip it up, and we'd only take it out on special occasions. And then like we had it like on our freezer in our garage, and like how in the TV room, if you open it goes into the garage. If you open the garage door to inside, you could see it, and Mikey was able to see it, and he would just like watch Little Buddy and just kind of whine about like, I want to play with Little Buddy. Give me Little Buddy.
Yeah, and so I don't know how characteristic this is of dogs, but that was one of the things that like this guy's kind of smart. Like he would be like looking at this toy, like he knew where we placed it. Like the other thing is you mentioned the sliding door, and so previously we had just like a regular back door, and then when our previous dog Sparky was old, we had gotten that sliding door, and so we had Mike, and there's a sliding door, so obviously you can see through it. So as we're teaching him, you just the basic sit, shake, down commands. He learned to use his paw like as a tool. Yeah, like
he do the shaking motion, but he'd do that as like a.
And so he would like tap the window or the sliding door. So it becomes nighttime, it gets cold, or it's not warm outside. Throw him the ball and close the door. So he'd get the ball, then come back, and then
tap on the door.
Tap on the door, and he still does that all the time. And as much as we wanted him to use the dog door, he has to go all the way around the house. So
he has to go through the garage and then to the TV room.
And so I guess we mentioned we'd have to walk Mike a lot. Oh, this is one of the like my favorite Mikey stories. So this is one of the fairly early on when we walked him. Now our previous dogs, very calm dogs. So we would just put the leash on the collar. Now Mike, he's a big young guy. We had a harness on him.
Well, he came with a harness, and we're like, why? We've just used a leash. And then we started walking him. This is the first time we were walking him. The second day we had him, and it was raining that day, and we were walking him during the afternoon, and then he would just jump out every car that was just driving by. He'd just jump out.
And we're like, oh, okay. Now we see why we have the harness. Because he's a very he tries
his hardest all the time,
and when he's determined when he has his mind set on something. So like it would, and I never thought about it because our previous dogs were calm, but it's fairly inhumane to be choking a dog to get him to do what you want him to do.
Well, luckily this harness is like how it works is if he pulls too hard, it turns him around. So he faces us.
Yeah, so he would he probably would have really hurt himself if we had just traditional one on the collar. So what I wanted to get at was we would take him on long walks, and this was probably a Friday night, and I don't remember exactly when this was, but I feel like it was fairly early on.
Yeah, it was still probably winter break, or just after winter break.
And so we're walking him. I want to say it was a Friday or Saturday night. We weren't doing anything. We'll walk the dogs. Don't have to deal with other people. And he somehow slipped out of the harness. Now, I don't know if it wasn't tightened all the way, or from what I can kind of recall, he was behind smelling something, and we kind of pulled. I think I was holding him. And I kind of pulled it, and he had slipped out of the harness. And so,
well, I think what happened is he was fighting backwards, he was trying to hold his ground, and then you pulling him, it slipped off.
And so he's off this harness, and he's just running around in circles on this person's front lawn. And so this is probably 9 or 10 o'clock. On a Friday, so and this is in a really, really neighborhoody area, so it's dead quiet. But our Mikey is just running around in circles, and this is the first time we're like trying to like catch him. You know, it's like
we didn't know he would do. We didn't know if he'd like run in the street. We didn't know.
Yeah, so we had to be very careful because I think I was being more you were being more protective of him, like going in the street or whatever, trying to like wall him off that way, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like not hog tie him or like grab him, like I don't know what I was trying to do. Just trying to do something to get him because we're very concerned. You know, it's our new dog. We never had a dog do this before. So it was probably like a couple minutes, right, where he was running around.
Like 1 or 2 minutes, yeah.
And then he stopped.
And it feels a lot longer when
Yeah, because you're like, this is my dog. Like, I don't want something bad to happen to him. We don't know, like, the lights were, like, kind of off in the house. They had, like, a porch light, but, like, we don't know. There's some kind of weird old people who just look out their window. Like, we have no idea.
I've walked out. I've been walking Mikey, like, sometimes I walk Mikey late at night, and I'll walk by people's houses, you know, because that's what you do. And, like, I was picking up Mikey's poo, and someone's like, you know, getting mad at me that like I was like hanging out around their house. So like there's weird people.
Yeah, so he stops running, then he goes poo, and we just kind of look at each other, and it's like we did it. So we just put the harness on, clean up his poo, and go. It's like this is how we got this dog. Like he didn't want to escape. He just had energy and wanted to play. Now, obviously, we were walking him, but, you know, he's basically still, you know, fairly puppy. You know, I don't know the exact definition of a puppy, but I feel like, you know, within a year or so,
yeah, I think
still a puppy.
The first year.
Maybe until they stop growing. But he just had that crazy energy, so, and then he just needed to let it out. So, to me, that's like one of the quintessential Mikey stories. So is there anything else that pops to your head that you want to share about Mike?
Just in general? Or
yeah, just in general, or any particular stories?
Well, I remember one time we were camping, and there was like a lake.
Oh yeah, so he was probably 2, 3...
So, yeah, 2 or 3. Still young.
So we went on a family camping trip, and, you know, we like to go camping, and previously, you know, we just take the dog to our grandparents' house, or maybe not like my mom didn't go camping or my dad didn't go, so there's someone to take care of the dog, but the whole family wanted to go, so we found a place where dogs were accepted, and so you know, he was definitely a couple years old because we'd felt a lot more confident. He was good. He was good at picking up the commands. He's extremely food motivated.
We've had him off leash before. Like we took him to the beach, and
nothing very uncharacteristic of a lab. And if you're just an audio listener on the YouTube video for this, there's a picture of him, and on the Twitter feed there will be a picture of the dogs, and maybe I'll post multiple, so there'll always be a way for you to see them. So he's basically your typical black lab, and so we took him camping, and there's this large lake, and there's a couple different sections. Now, how it kind of worked from the campground was there was like, you could, if you're driving, turn right. If you're walking, turn left. So we were just walking, and so we turned left. And if you turn right, you know, you drive a little bit, and then you get to a parking lot, and there's a place for boats and all that kind of like
jet skis, all the water sport thing that you would.
Yeah. So and then on this left path, it's like you have to walk, you know, probably 10 minutes or so. You're walking through the park. But then there's kind of like this secluded little section. So like,
well, there's a bunch of like little secluded sections. Like,
yeah.
But we found one.
So it's just us, and, you know, no dogs in the lake. And so basically we kind of, and it's really hot. This is in like Central California.
Yeah.
So it was really hot summer. And so we'd basically kind of alternate. Okay, someone holds the dog, And then, the other people are in the water. And then eventually we're like, hey, we don't see, like, anybody here. And, like, how the shape of the lake was, there's, like, earth and trees and a bunch of stuff. So we couldn't even see that complete other section where all the cars were. And so we're like, well, why don't we just let him in the water and we'll just have someone hold, we'll have his harness on and someone holding the leash, but let him go in the water.
Yeah, and he was like begging to go in the water the whole time, and I forget who let him go, but I was in the lake, and the first thing he did was swim to me, and I remember him like just swimming and like just making sure I was okay because I was too far out for him. He wanted me to come closer,
and of course, like we were like standing, if farther than standing, like a few feet farther than where you could touch the bottom, but
we were like and it was still water, so not like
there was no danger, but Mikey made sure we were okay. And like I remember, like I had a bunch of scratches on my chest because his doggy paddle kept... he would just come up to you and like he'd be splashing towards you and he'd scratch you, but
it was fine. And I always think about that all the time. Just, him just making sure we're okay in the lake.
So, I guess the other kind of, like, key point to Mikey's, life is the dog park. And so, mentioned many times, he's a very active dog. And so, hey, what better way to expel his energy than take him to the dog park?
Yeah, Mikey has always been weird socially with around other dogs.
Yeah, we're not too sure why. I imagine part of it is probably our fault. But he likes dogs, but he has a strange...
He has different rules.
Like, yeah, we mentioned the rules about him chasing the ball. But, like, so just like a quick example of basically, or explanation of what he does is he sees a dog he likes, he gets excited, but then he, like, whines.
Yeah, he's, like, so excited he whines. Like, I want to play with that dog. I want to smell that dog's butt. I want to do everything with this dog. This dog is my best friend. And then he whines because he's like, I need this right now.
But
and
the other dog
interprets it as, like...
doesn't understand that.
And he interprets it as, like aggressive and...
and then, so it's turned out as, like, someone will start barking or growling, or both of them start doing that, and then we grab him tight and keep walking, the other person keeps walking, and then he'll start whining again. So it's like, oh, he's not aggressive, he's not wanting to fight, he just wants to play, and he doesn't really know how to show that. I mean, we took him to, what is it, dog...
The dog training, and then we went to dog socializing school.
And even then, he was weird.
He only liked one dog, and it was a greyhound. And what they would do is the greyhound would run in the circle, and all the dogs would chase that dog. And then Mikey was, smart, so the dogs would run in a circle. And obviously, the greyhound's a lot faster than the other dogs. But Mikey would cut in the circle to get closer to the greyhound, and he would get close to it. And then, obviously, the greyhound would outrun him. And so, that's perfect that you mentioned that, because, of course, we would see this dog a number of times at the dog park. And so, basically, I don't remember the first time we took him. I don't know if I was there. But eventually what the dog park kind of became was just basically like... track meet for Mikey. Yeah, so this dog park was not that wide, but it was really long,
and it was the material was that kind of like that like old school track material. I don't know what it's called, but it's like softer than like gravel, but it's more like firm than dirt or sand, and like I mentioned, it was old track and field. Use this material, and so basically what it was evolved to for us, and so I don't. Sorry,
I thought I had my...
Very unprofessional.
I thought I put my phone on silent.
So what it would basically evolve to is we would just throw the ball as far as we can, and Mikey would chase it. I think, and I don't know how quickly, we would just do that because, that's what he liked doing. But I don't know how quickly, I remember sometimes we would take him and be like, okay, obviously he's not going to listen, but hey, Mikey, go play with the other dogs. And he wouldn't care. He did not care about the other dogs at all. He sees the dog walking down the street, he wants to meet the dog. Dog park, all business. And so, there'd be times where we'd go, tell him to play, he wouldn't, and we're like, okay, we'll just throw him the ball. And so we did, and then he would just run to his heart's content, and he would probably run more than he should, tire himself out.
He would tire himself out, and he'd, just, barely, walk to, the water bowl, the shared water bowl, and, he'd just plop himself and lie down, and then just drink while lying down. And
then he'd be panting and smiling and looking at us and all of that. And so I guess kind of the tragic thing. So we took him there for a number of years.
It was only 2.
So I think it was we stopped for a while and he came back. But basically what kept happening is he kept injuring his paw. And I guess essentially he would overdo it and he would tear up the padding on his foot, and it was different. It was different feet each time. It wasn't always the same foot, and so he had the cone and all of that, and eventually we just realized we can't do this, and so eventually we just stopped doing that. I think he's almost 9 now,
yeah,
and probably when he was probably 5 was probably the last time we took him,
yeah. But
even then is we would not throw it as far as we could and because part of it too was a challenge. We'd try to throw it, angle it up high and see if he could, time it perfectly like a football catch. Yeah. And sometimes he would, but obviously sometimes he would just lose track of it. And so that was really sad because, the dog park has a distinct smell even for a human, and so
it was near water and there's a bunch of salt,
and he would instantly know, he knew the smells on the way to the dog park, and he would just start whining and freaking out. There are times where he'd be in the back seat and he would do a complete 360 spin in the back seat of a car.
Mikey's very smart, and he knows the routes to the different ways. So he knows a route to even where no windows were up, he'd be in the car. He would look out the window and he would know if I'm going to the dog park, I'm going to our grandma's house, or going to wherever the vet, or he knew the difference between the places. And even on walks, he knows the different routes the different walks that we do.
Yeah, so we mentioned that he would physically keep going, and because it's kind of a weird thing for us because we want him to burn his energy, we want him to have a good time, but we don't want to overdo it for him. So sometimes he would overdo it and he would be completely sore, and he would just be spend a day curled up. And so yeah, we just we walk around our neighborhood. We basically do a few permutations of our walks, and so sometimes if he's tired, he'll turn at the same spot every time. So I guess another kind of character-defining story of Mikey is when we took him to our grandma's house for the first time. This was a couple weeks after we had got him, and we can't leave him home by himself, and she lives a couple hours away, so we can't leave him.
Well, plus you wanted to meet the dog.
Yeah, exactly, too. It's we got this great dog, he's really smart, he's really, he's a good-looking dog, and so we take him up there, and the first thing I remember he did is he went in her backyard and did the same thing where he just runs around in a circle. Now I don't.
Yeah.
I should really look that up to find out more of what that is. But it's really funny to see a dog do that, just spin around and like run around in a circle. And this is like 20 feet in diameter circle. Like
yeah, it's not a huge circle. It's just like just running in.
And so I guess the important part of this story was that it was a holiday, so my grandmother had baked like a loaf of bread, and Mikey, he's very food motivated, and he is an athletic dog, and so he jumps on the counter.
Also, he's very like sneaky.
Yeah, he's very quiet. We haven't mentioned it yesterday, but we have another dog named Dewey, and Dewey, he's like a yellow lab, probably mixed with some stuff. And he's not quite so sneaky. Like, he's very, same thing, food motivated.
He's food focused. His whole life is about food.
But we'll after this, we'll talk about Mikey and getting Dewey and him and Mikey. And so my grandmother would make this bread, and you don't live with dogs, especially for a long time, or not. Some dogs just behave better than others. Some aren't as food motivated. So he had jumped on the counter and stole this loaf of bread. And so he's holding it in his mouth, like essentially how he would hold a toy.
Like a giant bone.
Yeah, and my 80 whatever year old grandma at the time is like trying to chase him
with a newspaper
for this loaf of bread. And so it's like you have this Russian grandmother chasing this dog for a loaf of bread. And at this point, we had gotten food stolen. He had stole food from us. Like,
yeah, we learned really quickly.
You really learn the hard way when you get a dog, and who can jump on the counter and all of that. And so, there's a point where it's like, okay, let him have it. He won this time. We just have to be smarter. So let's see. Is there anything else popping into your head before we?
Well, just him stealing food. Like, he figured out how to open all the cupboards in our house, so we had to like child lock them, and then, yeah.
Okay, so I guess fast forwarding a few years is we got another dog, Dewey. My mom just wanted another dog. She wanted an older dog, so she spends time looking at the Humane Society website and, hey, let's check out this dog. So at this time, Dewey's 12. This was 3 years ago.
Nine.
More than 3 years ago.
No, it could have been. Is it 2 years ago?
No, it was more than 2.
You sure?
Yeah. So I think Mikey was 6 and Dewey was 9. And so my mom's like, oh, I want an older dog, one who will be lazy. And so we go to the Humane Society. We bring Mikey with us because, like, obviously you need a dog. You need 2 male dogs, especially, to meet each other to see how
it works out.
How compatible they are.
I mean, and Mikey has met other dogs, and it didn't work out. Because my mom, Dewey's not the first dog my mom wanted to check out.
Yeah, and I guess not really need to go in too much, but Mikey is a very aggressive play style, and I think a lot of it stems from him being strong.
He's aggressive in play style, and then he's also very protective of us. So, like, if like a dog would come up to us, he'd be like, "Hey, what is that dog doing? Like, I don't trust this dog."
And so we go to the Humane Society. We see this dog. We're like, cool. We meet him. Hey, he's a nice dog. And so it gets to that next step where it's like, well, okay, let's bring in Mike and have him meet the dog. So we bring Mike in. We go to like the meeting room area, and you weren't here.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. So I was there.
I think it was just you.
Yeah, Ian was there.
Oh, Ian was there?
Yeah, so they're in this meeting room. It's like, all right, So they go to the meeting area, they smell each other, they're on harness and leash, and so far so good. We're with the Humane Society person, so, we know Mike, but we don't know how to interpret behavior. We know Mike's strong, we know he's aggressive, we don't want him to be too overbearing. So the person says, hey, things are looking good, we take him off the leash, and so they start doing like the play bowing, and they start wrestling, and we're just standing there, and to me it looked a little too aggressive, and I was like, I was not comfortable with it. And I don't know if I told you this before, but they're playing, and so it's me, my older brother, my mom, and the Humane Society person, and they're playing, and Dewey gets hit or whatever into me, and like he doesn't take me out, but he just crashes right into one of my legs, and it feels like when you watch football and like the photographer or whatever gets knocked over. Like I basically kind of felt like that, but I didn't fall over. But I was like, man, like this stupid dog. Like I don't like how this is going. And so when Mike's playing, he's making kind of like these grunting kind of noises. There's Dewey barking in the background. If you hear that, being fed, Dewey will get his own episode. So I'm thinking in my head, I don't like this. But the person says it's fine, and eventually we move forward with it. We get Dewey. Boom, we have Dewey. Now, as we mentioned, Mikey is very protective, and dogs are territorial, and so the first, 6 months?
First 6 months, yeah.
Of having both of them was really tough.
Well, like, even the first meeting of, like, me meeting Dewey, Mikey was not a fan of that. He didn't trust Dewey, and he didn't want Dewey to do, because, I mean, it's just like meeting someone and invite, like, it's like a new roommate. You don't know, what their quirks are, and so Mikey doesn't know what Dewey was like, so he's just wants to make sure that I'm safe, and especially me, because I don't know, Mikey.
And of course, at like 6'4", 6'5", or whatever, how tall you are, you need that kind of protection.
Yeah.
So the first months were really tough. I spent a lot of time. I was like a part-time student for a lot of that, for like a semester, and so I spent a lot of time with them, and so, especially Dewey, and so basically, Mike would be the kind of dog who, like, we're not home, he's just sleeping the whole time. Mm-hmm. Dewey is more,
he'll sleep, but then he'll get up and then walk, like...
Yeah. And I don't want to go too much into talk about Dewey, but basically what kept happening is they would get into fights, like, all the time, whether someone looked at the other one,
or they were too close, or
they're too close,
not even too close to them, they're too close to this ball, or they're...
Yeah, and to be fair, it was mostly Mikey.
Dewey was fine. It was Mikey just being like, hey...
Mikey would start growling, and then obviously Dewey feels like he's got to protect himself, and then they would start going at it. And so it got fortunately nothing serious.
We us as humans separating the dogs got more hurt than the dogs.
Yeah, but it was very, like, painful and, like, unpleasant and kind of experience, because, like, we would just be in, like, our TV room, and then you just hear this, and then they start going at it, and, like, it, like, shocks you, and, you're just trying to take it easy, or we're just having fun, and these two dogs go at it, and like we mentioned, Mikey's protective, and he's protective of things including a tennis ball. And Dewey walked by that tennis ball that I not holding, but I think is mine, and then they would go at it, and it sucked. And at first we didn't really know how to break it up, but eventually I kind of figured just grab them by the back legs and pull them. And so
so like it's like a 3-person process. It doesn't necessarily have to be 3-person, but the most effective way is like a 3-person process. There's one person in the middle pushing the chests of the dogs away, and then like there's people pulling the legs.
But you got to be careful, because they're
They're
Their mouths,
chomping, yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know if they didn't really hit each other, but I got cut a few times.
Yeah. I mean, we all did.
Trying to separate, because our first kind of reaction was to grab the collar and pull him back, but eventually we learned to just grab him by the back legs and pull him back. Now, for context, Dewey is 80, 85 pounds.
No, I think he's 90.
Well, whatever. It doesn't. That's not that important. But he's a pretty big dog too. Now, Dewey's a very gentle, not giant. In the grand scheme, I guess he's a giant for dogs. But he wouldn't hurt a fly, basically. But he's got to protect himself, and it was really hard, having to constantly deal with this. Like, sometimes it was multiple times a day, and sometimes it would be worse than others. I remember one time we had a football, and they both wanted to play, and then they started getting mad at each other, and we were outside in the backyard, and it wasn't like our traditional kind of playing. Like, the ball was just on the ground, and they started going at it, and so we had to run and get there. Usually it would be in our TV room, which is fairly small,
or our bedroom,
or and so the dog's basically right next to you, so you just grab them real quick and then de-escalate it. And so it went on, just too long, and Mike had cut part of Dewey's head and took a small chunk of fur. Nothing major, but that was painful to see, because it's you start getting those thoughts, is this going to work out? Now, here's Mikey coming back in the room, because he is very loyal. But it's painful, because you're is this going to work out? Do we have to get rid of Dewey? I mean, as it is, Dewey was actually close to being sent to kind of like a dog,
the foster,
farm kind of thing, yeah. A few hours away, and so you start thinking oh, I don't want all these bad things happening. We care about the dog, and we want it to work out, but we don't know, and
we're more worried about the safety of the dogs versus
sometimes I joke oh, I didn't want Dewey, but at the time I was like...
Do you joke about that? Or are you serious?
No, I joke about it now. But, I would say... Because I said I don't think it's a good fit. And so I kind of felt bad, because I was I said this, and... Apologize for the text. I would say this, and, you want to be a little more conservative with something like this, because... we would leave them home while we're at work and school, and so we don't want them to fight. For a while, Dewey was crated, so we had that. But I was we don't want something bad to happen to the dogs, because we care about them, and so that was really tough. Mike's mostly the same, but he definitely changed a little bit once we got Dewey, and it was weird because we'd take him on walks and they'd be perfectly fine. But then, this dog walked by me, and so now I'm going to be really annoying.
Yeah, on walks, they'd be fighting for the same smell. Their nose is they're right next to each other.
It wasn't aggressive, but at home is...
No. I'm just saying. So they're working they're perfectly fine with it, being so close to each other.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then you're on the other side of the room, but you're near my ball. I'm going to go after you. It was just weird. Again, Mikey has these rules.
And so, not to harp on too much about Dewey, but it's been important, kind of like a change with Mike, is Dewey is very diligent about checking the cabinet for the trash. And so when...
Well, I mentioned earlier that
eventually Mike would learn not to do it.
And we were able to take him off.
Yeah, we didn't have to take off the baby lock. So it was at one point it was broken or whatever, and Mike had gotten into the trash. And there was a little bag that had some chicken bones in it. We had chicken, whatever. And Mike took it and went under the kitchen table. So Mike... Most of the times when we eat dinner, he'd be under the kitchen table. We have a dining room table that he likes to sleep sleep under. But he went under the table, and I was getting it away from him. You know, I don't want him to hurt himself on the chicken bones. And he was like growling at me. And this was probably what, 7-year-old?
He's
7-year-old Mike. Like, he's like very mature dog. This isn't like new dog. We've known him all the time, wrestled with him.
At that point, he was like never growled at me. He's growled at other people in our family, but hasn't growled at me.
He's kind of looking at me right now. And so I'm like trying to get this away from him. He growls at me, and I'm saying like, Mike, you know, I'm doing a stern voice, like, come on, Mike. Like, and I don't know how smart this makes him, but he understands Mike and Mikey, so I like that. I like being able to interchange them. And so I'm like trying to get this thing away from me, and he bit me. And it wasn't that hard, but it didn't hurt too much. You can still see like a little mark on my hand. I don't know if it's necessarily qualifies as a scar. See in the middle of my hand right here.
I don't know.
But his big tooth had bit me, and I yelled at him, really loud, and it's probably one of the loudest that I yelled, and I was upset, and it hurt me more like emotionally that he bit me than the actual pain of biting me. Because, like, this is this dog we've cared about, spent so much time with. Like, he sometimes sleeps on my bed while I'm there, walk him all the time, pose him all the time. And so that hurt. And I don't know what it was, but I felt like I was kind of, not because of Dewey, but because we had another dog, he felt like he needed to be a little bit more territorial.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't, like, he was like, I don't know if it was depressed or anything, but, like, he felt like he didn't have his own space anymore. Like, he felt like I don't know, like, he lost something. But, I mean, now he is, like, back to normal.
Yeah, and of course, like, him and Dewey are perfectly fine, and my hand was fine. Like, it didn't really bleed a lot. Like, it kind of just, like, punctured me, like, kind of in between some veins. But yeah, that really like struck me, and I think you felt bad too, you know, because like you're physically a big person, so I think Mike has always viewed you as the clear top dog, and so did he ever growl at you?
He has now, but at that time no, he hadn't.
Yeah, so that
and then when he's growled at me, he's like, "Oh, I messed up," and he feels terrible.
Yeah, so some dogs. I've heard of some dogs doing this, where they do something bad, and then they kind of feel bad, like he's growled, and then like at my mom, and then I'll come in and be like, Mike, and then he'll kind of like do this moan thing and just kind of hide under the table, and I guess he realized he did something wrong. So that was painful, especially this dog. We've, who knows? I mean, that facility where he came from is no longer there, but who knows how much he even remembered that? Like, basically, his entire life has been in our house.
Yeah, the majority of it.
So, are there any other Mike stories, or do you think that?
There's a lot of Mike stories
that you want to share. I mean, of course, he does funny things all the time.
I'm good.
Any other thing you want to describe Mike or share?
He loves the beach. I don't know. I kind of mentioned that earlier.
Oh yeah, we can talk about the beach. So we took him to the beach, and the beach was kind of like a big deal, I guess, for us, kind of like entrusting him.
Because he's not. The times we allowed him at the beach, he still wasn't like good with dogs. He's still like, or not
he still wasn't very interested.
Well, interested, but also like he makes noises when he's interested in a dog, and dogs don't like that. So it's still kind of like a weird area.
Now, luckily we took him to San Francisco. San Francisco is a very, very dog friendly city, so there are a lot of dogs who are good with other dogs.
Yeah.
So we took him to the beach. I don't know how old he was. Probably 2 or 3 the first time we took him.
I think you and Ian took him the first year,
Didn't
but
you-
I didn't go. But
Oh, okay.
you took him, but he was only on leash. The second year, we let him off leash.
Okay, and so that was a big deal because Mike's a smart dog, very food motivated. We used to use Cheerios to have him practice commands. But one of the
Well, it used to be hot dogs, but then
but one of the things about him
not whole hot dogs.
is, and I don't know if this is poor training on our part or he's just smart and doesn't see the point. But he would, like, if you were just in the house and you call him to come over, most of the time he won't come over.
Yeah, you have to be like, "Hey, I'm doing this. Come here." Like if I have a tennis ball, I'm upstairs and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna throw you this ball downstairs. Let's go." And he'll go downstairs. But if I'm like, "Hey, let's go downstairs," he'll be like, "I'm cool here," or whatever.
So one of the so it was a big test for us, and so dogs love the beach. I guess that was the first time he probably went into the water, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean to our knowledge.
yeah, to our knowledge, I mean, I assume so. But so we took him to the beach. I'm a fairly athletic guy, so I was like, I had my running shoes. We're on the beach, but I'm still like, I'm mentally prepared. Like, if I need to run after this dog,
We have treats, we have balls.
yeah, we have treats, we have tennis balls. We're loaded. We have everything we need in order to do this. And so we go. It's kind of like a 10 or 15 minute walk on the way down to the actual beach part. And this is Fort Funston, if anyone's curious. And so we had him on leash the whole time there. He's meeting dogs. There's like, for him, it's like it's not quite, it's like, wouldn't call it overwhelming, but it's like there's so many dogs where it's like he doesn't need to like freak out that there's a dog.
Yeah.
It's like there's a dog there.
It's kind of overstimulated, and then like, it's whatever. I'm used to it.
So we take him down to the beach part. I'm like, I guess we'll just do it. And we let him off leash, and I don't think he quite knew what to do at first.
Yeah, he's like, this hasn't happened before.
Because he kind of understands, like he understands putting on the leash. He likes having the leash put on him,
Yeah.
or the harness when we walk him. And there have been times where we've dropped the leash on accident or whatever, and he'll just stop walking.
And he's like, hey, you gotta pick that up?
I guess for him it's just, kind of part of the process of going on a walk.
It's kind of like an astronaut, the little tether to the space station.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so we just let him go. And then, we had some balls. He would chase after the ball. It was windy, so, if he was far away, he wouldn't hear us. He'd like to run off, but he would run, a couple 100 or so feet away, and he would just stop and look back for us. And
then we'd say,
pretty close right away, we realized, like, okay, he gets that we're like part of, I don't want to say a pack. I mean, maybe he thinks that, but he's like, he gets that this is like a thing. Like, he's not just like being let
go forever
in like the forest or whatever. And so he had a great time. He'd chase the ball. He would meet some dogs.
Well, he'd also listen to commands, like
yeah. And so that thank you for saying that, because that was the other thing, is he would actually listen to the commands, and we're like,
well, I mean,
phew.
he knows sit. I mean, he knows how to shake, but like you have to he has to have a reason to do it. Like he has to
he's more likely to sit and shake on his own, but actually, like, if I'm in the backyard and I just call him, he most likely won't come.
But at the beach, you'd say, "Hey, Mikey, come here," and then he would, or just come, or whatever you'd say, and you'd come, and he'd be like right at your side, and like, okay.
And that was a big sigh of relief, because we're like, okay, we're good. We don't have to worry about chasing this dog. And then we took him a few times after that, and he's had a great time every time.
Yeah, he runs until he's pooped, and then
I guess one thing that we skipped over was Pumpkin.
Oh yeah, we got a cat. Well, we have 2 cats now.
But so we had adopted this cat. And how old was Mike?
Mikey was
2?
No.
3?
Or was it 2? I think Mikey was 2.
All right, so he's a couple years old when we got this cat, and so it was a kitten,
or maybe 3.
And so he really liked the cat. The cat's Pumpkin. He's very instantly interested. He's the kind of dog who would like seeing cats on walks and would perk up a lot. And so we got this cat, and I think the cat we would just kind of keep secluded in my parents' room.
Yeah, for the first
for a while,
for first maybe month or whatever, just to say this is your home, and then we'd have the cat have access to the whole house after that first month. And then
and eventually we had the dog and the cat meet, and this cat was an actual kitten.
Yeah,
so he wasn't
a couple weeks old.
He wasn't neutered. And so I think for a cat, it's 6 months. They have to be at least 6 months old.
Yeah.
Before you can neuter them. And this was mostly before he was neutered, but a little bit after. Is the cat and the dog would play.
They wrestle.
And they had this kind of game where Mike would kind of use his nose as kind of as a pointer and would poke the cat. And the cat would
hit him on the nose,
punch him. He wouldn't scratch him, but punch him. And
Mikey loved being hit on the nose.
And Mike would hit him in his belly, and the cat would be on his back and on his side rolling, and then they would play, and that was great. And I think kind of after that, Mike lost interest in cats for a while.
Yeah, because he had his own cat.
He had his own cat to play with, and so they were kind of buds, and eventually. The cat kind of stopped playing with Mike.
Well, after he got...
Yeah, not too long after he got neutered, he kind of, lost interest. We think it was some sort of, testosterone kind of...
I don't know if we're serious about that, but that's what we say.
That was some sort of, that was, a somewhat logical reason that we could come up with.
And Mikey tried playing with their other cat.
So and then a couple years later, we got another cat.
But that cat had no interest
in him. He was just obsessed with the other cat, so he had no interest in Mike. And so Mike would, sometimes this is called the Good Boy Podcast, because in general, dogs are good, loving creatures, but, sometimes he'd misbehave and chase the cats.
Yeah, Mikey can be a poop head sometimes. He's great, but he finds a way to get his way, and
I'm not necessarily proud of the story, but senior in high school when I first got him, and he has a lot of energy, and he would rip up paper. Sometimes he'd just rip it. Sometimes he ate it.
Well, he ate a bunch of CDs, or tore up a bunch of CDs of mine.
Well, I guess it was 2009, 2010, but at that point you shouldn't be too disappointed about losing CDs.
No, but it's still...
Yeah.
Well, it could have hurt him, because they're...
Okay. That's a fair point. But... So there's one time where he, ripped up, part of, a reading I had to do for school. And I was like, cool. Part of me was like, cool, I don't have to read this. But I was like, cool, now I have to, explain. So I tell my teacher, hey, I couldn't do the reading because my dog ripped it. And, he ripped it, but he ripped, half a page. It wasn't even... It was, a few-page packet. And he ripped, half a page. So it wasn't... I kind of hammed it up a little bit. But I was like... Sorry, I couldn't... it before class. I couldn't do the reading. My dog, ripped up my paper. And she was like, okay, why don't you tell the class? She wasn't, mad or anything. But she's like... Can you... tell the class what happened? And I was like, my dog literally ate my homework. He ripped it off. And, it's not that funny, but, I feel kind of, goofy saying it now. Oh, my dog ate my homework. But it was I can check a box that this happened.
He hasn't ate any of my homeworks, assignments, but, just CDs and, recycling. He still goes after recycling.
Yeah, it's cardboard. Really, he eats.
But that's when we haven't played with him enough, and it's I have a bunch of energy. I want to be a bad boy. You know, and he knows he's being a bad boy. Like, he's aware of it, and you know, he'll give you that look like, "Hey, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I'm being naughty," and he kind of likes that feeling. But I mean, he likes being a good boy better.
So I think I mentioned this in the episode 1. This is technically episode 2. But part of what's going to happen is there's going to be stories that pop up in your mind. I mean, you live with a dog, you spend time with them. There's all sorts of things. And I forgot to mention this earlier, is that Mikey loves carrots.
Yeah, he eats a carrot every day.
So I think how it started was my mom just had baby carrots one day just to eat. And he really wanted one. You know, food-motivated dog, whatever. And so my mom gave it to him. And he liked it.
And he kept sitting there, like, asking for more. And I was like, Mom.
And so
Mom was like, I'm going to buy him a big carrot.
Yeah, so my mom buys him those big carrots. And every morning he gets his breakfast. And then he gets a carrot. And so basically, so the inspiration behind the name Good Boy Podcast was behind the video series I started called the Good Boy series, where it's Mikey and Dewey just doing like funny, cute, everyday dog kind of stuff. And on there's a video of Mike doing this, but basically how it works is he gets his carrot, he'll sit, shake, he'll do all of that, but then he puts it in his mouth like a pirate has like a knife or something.
Or a dog with a bone.
I like the pirate one. And then he goes in the hallway by the front door and eats his carrot.
And his teeth are really white.
And it's like, what I love about it, it's like, yeah, this is just a thing I do. I eat my carrot. And it's not as like funny as that, but he likes watermelon too. You know, during the summer we had watermelon and he wanted some. So he loves watermelon too. So that started when he was young, the carrots, and so he's almost 9 now. Still eats his carrots.
Yeah, he loves it. It's like he'll like if you don't give him his carrot, he'll be like, "Hey, he'll stand by the refrigerator and like, hey, I want a carrot. Give me a carrot."
I guess another kind of like Pavlov's dogs. Dog hears the same sound or whatever, they salivate. We used to have dog food that had the can opener, so every time we use the can opener, he comes in. You know, he's smart enough to know if he's ate dinner or what the food smells like. Because if it's like beans or whatever, he doesn't like beg for it.
Yeah.
But it still perks his ears up. The other couple of examples I can think of, the same kind of Pavlov's dog example, is that our closet where we have the leash has this distinct sound. So every time it opens up, he perks up.
Well, also where we keep the treats, you open it and he can be upstairs and on my bed, and then you'll hear like a little jar opening, and then he'll just run downstairs. And so what's the other one that I had? Well, so basically this wasn't my original one that I was going to say, but Dewey needs medicine, and my mom puts in cream cheese for him. And so Dewey gets his cream cheese, but then Mike's like, "Hey, give me my cream cheese." Yeah.
So like, yeah, Mikey's so funny in that like someone will call like Dewey, from across the house, and then Mike will come too. And it's like
Mikey usually beats Dewey.
It's like he knows that's not his name, but
yeah, he knows that it's a treat, and like you're not just going to give one dog a treat. You're going to have to give both, and he knows that, and he takes advantage of that fully. And I mean, he's really smart. And
here's another great one that I forgot. So, like we mentioned, when we got our cat Pumpkin, he would be in my parents' room, and so he'd be there with the door closed, and so we put the cat food in the bathroom. Where else are we going to put it? And then, we would let the cat free. We're home. We wouldn't let the cat outside the house, but he'd have free roam the house with the the bedroom door is open, and so we need to close the bathroom door so the dog doesn't eat the cat food. Now Mikey ate so much cat food because someone would forget,
or not close the door all the way,
or not close the door all the way, and he push it with his nose, and so he got so much cat food, and to this day, 5, 6, whatever years later, he still will go in there and look for the cat food. And the cat does it too, looks for cat food, which is funny.
Well, I mean, Mikey, talking about his memory, if he sees a friend that, he hasn't seen in like a year, or because they live out, they've moved, he remembers them, and gets really excited as he gets
really excited, and he flips out and goes crazy. I mean, as we're recording this, the Super Bowl is coming up, and we're gonna have some friends over who he hasn't seen. So the combination of the food and the friends, Mikey's gonna have a good day.
Yeah, he's just gonna give people tennis balls, expecting them being thrown to him.
Yeah, I guess. One other thing, it's like I want to say I love, but sometimes I hate that he does, is we mentioned that we would throw the ball outside to him while watching TV. So what he would do is he'd go up to you and I want to say deposit, but he'd kind of
we'll just drop the ball right in front of you.
Kind of do a little drop, but it'd kind of be a little toss, essentially.
Yeah, and then he'll nudge with his nose.
Yeah, so, this is one you forget, because you were asleep. So sometimes you have sleep trouble, your sleep gets super messed up.
Yeah.
So this was during the day, you were asleep on the couch. Mike puts the balls on the couch for you, and he's kind of waiting there, and he's moaning at you to throw him the ball, but he doesn't realize that you're asleep. And Ian and I were just cracking up, Mike, he's asleep, he can't do anything. But the most annoying part, so he's very persistent about it, but the most annoying part is he doesn't just put it at your feet or whatever. He'll put it in your waist, or he'll kind of I don't know the best word to describe it, but when he would drop it, he kind of puts a little power throw behind it. I know it's a weird way to say it, but it will get behind you, down on the couch and get near your butt, and then it'd be
awkward. He runs and let go, so it's the momentum of him running, just
and it's it's okay, we have a torn up backyard because of him, so it's mostly dirt, but you get the saliva mixed in with the ball rolling in the dirt, it gets muddy
and gross and
so
slimy.
It's what becomes super frustrating is you have people over and they don't want to touch the ball. Now, said we grew up with dogs. Both of us, plenty of times, have stepped in dog poo in our bare feet, and that sucks.
It sucks, but
the kind of muddy, saliva-y ball, that doesn't bother us. But what's awkward about it is reaching by your friends' butts and other body parts trying to get the ball, because they don't want to touch it, and it's we always tell people, you're meeting him for the first time, don't throw him the ball.
Yeah, if you throw him the ball once, you're throwing him the ball for the rest of your life.
Because it's my new friend to throw me the ball.
Right.
And I guess it's kind of one of the things that I really like about dogs is he may bark, he's done this before where I had friends who I told him about, and the friend comes over, and I open the front door before the friend gets there, and he's barking at them, and then he smells the friend, and it's oh, now you're his new best friend, and it's there's this juxtaposition of being super protective, but then being welcoming at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, if we're okay with someone, Mikey's okay with them.
Yeah, it's okay, you passed the test, now you're my best friend, and you must throw me the ball. So that generally sums up Mikey, as much as I can think right now.
Yeah, I mean, just a hard-headed, stubborn dog who,
he cares about people. He high energy, but he does really he does really feel like a part of the family.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. You know, like, there's that thing, like, let's make this house into a home, you know, and that can be kind of corny, but I feel like this dog, like, really is part of the family. Like, it's like, oh, like, gotta see Mike, gotta come over and see Mikey, you know, like, he's a good guy, and he cares about us, so we appreciate that. So I hope we did a good job giving at least a basic sketch in your mind of what Mikey is like. If necessary, in terms of our mind, maybe we'll do a second episode on Mikey and tell all sorts of stories, because we spent plenty of time with this dog. So there's dozens of stories that we're forgetting. So thanks for listening. I hope this was a good first episode. I'm going to constantly try to make improvements. I'm going to be still going to be making the Good Boy Series channel, where you can see them do everyday stuff. And I guess I'm going to start using the Twitter, the Good Boy Pod, at the Good Boy Pod. I will use that to tweet out episodes of the show. I plan on putting this on all the big podcasting services, as well as audio on YouTube and I apologize for the ambulance, audio on YouTube with a picture of the dog and saying the episode title. So if you want to, at least if you like to listen to it on your phone or whatever, you can listen to it, but then check out the YouTube page just to at least see a picture of it, or the Twitter feed will have pictures for each dog. So, Dima, is there anything you want to tell people to do, whether it's like a personal thing that you do, or just like, you know, support your local humane society or anything like that?
I mean, you should support your local humane society. You should adopt when you can. Yeah, adopt older dogs. They're great. They're not necessarily going to be the perfect mold, but they have great character and great charm. And I know I didn't adopt an older dog with Mikey, but
we did with Dewey.
We did with Dewey, and it's great. So I recommend doing that, because they deserve a home too.
Cool. And you want to like plug any of your social networks, or are you all Mr. Private?
I have a YouTube channel, No I and Me. I just post little skits. They're not that great, but you know, if you feel like you want to check them out. If not, no big deal.
And of course, you can reach me at the Twitter at Ilya Alexeyev, pronounced Alexeyev for anyone interested, but of course it's spelled weird, so Ilya Alexeyev, and you can search my name on YouTube for the Good Boy series and more stuff with the dogs. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the details of Mikey. That was not an intentional pun. I apologize.
No, you're not detailing him. He still has his tail. I mean, I guess.
Oh, true. So I didn't do a pun. Did I?
I don't know.
All right. Well, I hope we painted a picture of what Mike is like. We love him. He's a
black lab.
Yeah, he's a black lab. He's a goofy guy. So, thanks for listening, and keep petting those dogs. Just wanted to thank you for listening, and as we are starting the show and getting our first real episode recorded, just would love any feedback. I'll try my best to correct any things that I feel need to be fixed, but improved audio, less background noise, all those kind of things. So I appreciate any feedback. The best way to reach me is probably through Twitter at this point, at my name Ilya Alexeyev, or at the Good Boy Pod. Share it with your friends or family. This is supposed to be a fun, lighthearted show that anyone can enjoy, so I hope I got that through in this episode. So thanks for listening, and enjoy this episode.